Hi, in this unit we're going to continue with our parts room application. We've developed a pretty decent model, and we're going to be tweaking that model as we go along throughout the rest of the units. But of course now we need to look at how we're going to organize the view controllers to interact with that model and to display the information in that model or represented by that model to the user in a meaningful way. So let's get started with this idea. In the Parts Room app, we're going to be using a storyboard to organize our view controllers. And since the top-level view requires a choice between at least two options, parts and assemblies, and we might have a third option for inventory, we'll start with the tabbed application template. So this will give us a UI tab bar controller that we can hook into to actually instantiate some kind of view controller there, a UI tab bar controller subclass, to actually be talking with our model for the entire application. The first tab, the Parts tab, is going to display a listing of the parts catalog that we already have in our model, and this listing, of course, will be in a table view. Now, since that's in a table view, and table views really like to be embedded in navigation controllers, we'll embed the table view in some subclass of a UI navigation controller, or actually a UI navigation controller itself. So let's look at the overall organization. In this slide, I have a picture of Interface Builder with our storyboard set up as we will develop them in our unit. So over here, we have our main view controller, which is a UI tab bar controller, and we can see it has two tabs. And the first tab is a navigation controller. So in our storyboard, we've actually taken this view controller that was in here as a placeholder and deleted it and substituted a UI navigation controller, and then put a relationship segue between our tab bar controller and our navigation controller. And then the table view is actually embedded here in this navigation controller. This view controller is a placeholder for the assemblies side of our app that we're really not going to deal with in this unit. Okay, so the table view then, as it develops, will have two view controllers that are pushed on as part of the navigation controller. And if you can see this little button, it has a plus. This will be our adding view controller to add a new part. And then this is going to be our detail view controller, where we can see the parts detail. So this segue, the top segue, will be activated when we push the plus button to add a new view controller. And then this segue, the bottom one, will be activated when we touch a cell in our tab bar controller. So this is the overall organization as we're going to develop it for our view controllers here in Unit 7. Now, the question is, how do we hook the model classes up with this overall organization? Well, we're going to instantiate the model here in our main view controller. And we can see that this is not just a UI tab bar controller. We'll actually make a new subclass of UI tab bar controller and make it the custom class of this tab bar controller. And we're going to call that main view controller. And we'll instantiate our model classes within this. Then the other view controllers will talk back to or through this class in order to get to the model. The next step is, for each of these view controllers that are subsidiary to the table view controllers that are pushed on top of by the navigation controller, they will delegate back to here, to our table view controller, which is actually a subclass of UI table view controller. So all views pushed by the nav controller delegate, or the nav controller will delegate back to here. Now, this is not the class that holds the model. The class that holds the model is our main view controller, because these pushed view controllers may change the information that is displayed in our table view. Then we need a way here in the table view controller to actually make changes, to actually refresh the data in the table view. So we need to delegate back to the table view controller. And then we'll pass information back to our model controller. So the implementation of the delegate methods then accesses the model through this tab bar controller, which is our main view controller. So this is how the model kind of hookup is controlled from our view controllers. So, as I already said, changes in the adding and the detail view controllers will drive changes in the table view. So, for this reason, we must first delegate to the table view controller so it can reload its data if necessary, and then forward the information to the model via the tab bar view controller. So, we're not really doing anything new in this unit, but we're making use of the knowledge of our various view controller types, like a navigation controller and a tab bar controller and a table view controller, and then our knowledge of segues, how to set up delegation, how to get back through a navigation controller to a table view controller that holds it, or a tab bar controller that holds it, and so forth. And also our prior knowledge of application organization to develop the outline of a user interface that we're going to use moving forward. So that's the focus of this unit. The last unit we talked about developing a model. In this unit, we're talking about looking at view controllers and how to best represent the model to the user using view controllers. And then in the next unit, we're going to extend our view of the model and look at the model actually as an SQLite database and continue refining the user interface. Now, as we look at the model as a database, don't get confused. We're not changing the model. We're actually changing the implementation of the model. The model will still have a parts catalog, and it'll still have inventory, it'll still have assemblies, and so forth. But we're going to refine that model, especially in view of using it as a database. And that will require some changes to our model that we'll discuss in the next unit. So there's quite a few demos here in Unit 7. Please review those, and then we'll be ready to proceed on to a SQLite view of the model. Thank you very much.